so light.
Mine looks like champagne.
Welcome to Meet My Friend with Doug Ziegler.
Yeah. Hi. As you can see, we're super professional with our start.
Yeah, I said I was going to stumble through our start, and I didn't stumble, but it was kind of awkward.
But I messed it up, so all right.
Oh, perfect. Today right now we're going to talk Oklahoma beer with Brian. Am I going to get this right? Welzbacher?
Yeah.
Yay! Great. I'm horrible with names, even my friends. I'm worse with my friends' names, actually. What do you have, actually? Why not? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, all I'm doing is I decided instead of beer tonight, I'm doing rootstock cider. This is their dry version. My wife was into ciders for a while, and then for some reason they started giving her heartburn, so we have some. So I thought I'd have something a little lighter tonight. Looks very champagne-y.
It does look champagne-y. We could say that's a dirty glass, but actually it's supposed to have bubbles like that. Keep her moving, Ale Asylum. So, Oklahoma beer.
Yeah, I know nothing about Oklahoma beer, so
I've never been to. You ever been to Oklahoma?
No.
I hear there's tornadoes, and I hear there's good craft beer. So we're about to find out.
And boomers.
Lots of boomers.
And boomers.
Well, no, it's football. Don't worry.
Yeah, boomers.
Oh, I ain't trying to talk football.
No, me neither. I'm not from here.
Jackson.
Nice.
You're not trying to talk football either, though.
No,
none of us are. I don't think so.
Let's move that to the side.
Brian, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get to beers, okay?
Yeah.
Can we start to I like to find out where everybody's craft beer journey starts. So what is yours?
Oh, good question. I've always been one to buck the trend back in the day. Like you guys are drinking your pretty fancy little frou-frou light beers, and then I decided to do this big ass imperial stout because it's literally the only cold beer I have in my house right now that I would contemplate on drinking.
Foo-foo? Is that what I heard?
I mean, a little frou-frou. Frou-frou. But tonight I'm drinking an imperial breakfast stout from Main and Mill, kind of close to where I grew up. I grew up just on the other side of St. Louis, Missouri, in Illinois, not East St. Louis, like most people think. Not there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
it's getting better. But it's a bourbon barrel-aged beer with cacao, cinnamon, maple syrup, vanilla, and Mississippi mud espresso. So cheers.
Cheers. That's a lot going on in there.
Don't lie, you would like it.
Oh, I'd be pouring that in my glass too if I had it.
Pouring it into the my little carabiner mug.
Yeah, I got one of those.
Yeah.
Why do I not have one of those?
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up in Illinois, just outside of St. Louis. So I should be ingrained in all things Anheuser-Busch, right? And I should love Budweiser and drink Bud Light and all this stuff. And I was just like, yeah, no. Of course I did that. I went to college in a small town in Illinois. And, you put the screen on me. It really screwed me up. Hold on.
I love it.
Watch myself talk. Sorry. Much better. Okay.
It's better on you than me, man. So we'll keep that.
All right. I'll try and get past it. So grew up in suburb. I guess you can call it a suburb, Illinois, but always had some kind of access to quality craft beer too. Growing up, in college days, you'd always drink whatever's available, and you didn't really care. Money was tight, and you just. Usually it was a Bud Light product. We had Bud Select, which nobody really gets because it's more of a St. Louis regional product. But, through the years, one of my eye-opening craft breweries was Schlafly. The St. Louis Brewery is their legal name, no matter how many times Budweiser fights them on it. They were founded around the mid-'90s, and I think they're almost at 30 years now, anniversary or something. It's crazy. But so St. Louis scene, craft beer scene is what really got me into it. Of course I drank my fair share of Blue Moon, kind of thinking that was craft when, then you get a little bit smarter and you learn as you get outside of college, as many do. And life smacks you in the face a few times and you're like, oh, you're drinking that? You're cute. No, this is what you should be drinking. So I got out of college around 2004. And so it was around that time when craft really grew up in the late 80s. And, craft beer around then was about a teenager. So it's got its legs moving. It's peeking out into the world. It's, telling them more of a story. People are going to get more appreciation. And then, I was kind of along with that ride too. And it became a cultural movement, something to do with your friends, to go to a brewery, go to a tap room. The thing I preach about Missouri and Illinois, like it's a playground. I remember going to baseball games with friends and, you get over the Illinois line into Missouri and passenger just cracks a beer because you could do that. So why not? And, it was, high tolerance, I guess. Not a lot of, obviously it was you live around the city that brews the beer, so it was a lot of things, a lot of great distribution, and especially for Illinois too, thanks to Chicago, I think. And then that's been more the case this past decade, really. Illinois has gotten a lot of, both sides get the brewery from California. We get both East and West Coast beers all the time. So it's, there's a good amount of things to try. If you don't like something, you can easily find something that you will like. And that's even early on, early 2000s. And then when I moved to Oklahoma in 2008, I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? you can curse on here, right?
Well, you are now.
Mm.
No, we've always
done that, so I bucked the trend. Yeah. So, I moved down here. My girlfriend at the time, now wife, got an internship, turned into a job. I didn't have a lot going on at home and needed to get out of the house. So thought, let's go down, play house and see what happens. But yeah.
Doug?
No, I was telling Greg, I've never been to Oklahoma. I know very little about it from a beer scene, especially. I always had the impression that, forgive me, I'm an East Coaster, so we kind of jumble all the states in Oklahoma and Kansas and all them all together, which isn't fair, but it is for us. But it always gives you very I always thought it was oh, well, they only have beers only a certain percentage alcohol, or one of them, I remember one kid saying it was a dry state, and I was like, what? How is that even possible? So what is it from that perspective?
Well, until last year, 2018, we had dry counties. Now they're all wet. So we just got rid of all of our dry counties, which was actually surprising in my. But I think they all see the tax revenue coming in too.
Yeah.
And yes, it was a very unprogressive state. And I can go into a little bit of the history of it now that I've kind of researched it. But at my time, it was 2008. It was, and like you mentioned, you lump all those states together. It was a flyover state, very much so. A lot of craft breweries from the East Coast just didn't want to touch it because there was no interest. They had their Bud, Miller, Coors. That was all they needed. And it was a 3.2 alcohol by volume. No, by weight. Alcohol by weight, 4% ABV. And that was all, it was a lot of what they grew up on and what they knew. And that law was systemic from the prohibition of reinstating beer into the U.S. And it started with 3.2. Well, the repeal prohibition didn't really go into full effect in Oklahoma until 1959, when they actually got liquor stores. But beer was always treated as a lower level drink. It just wasn't given the respect, lumped in with everything else. I mean, there were plenty of people lobbying and telling, hey, this is like around 6%. It's not that bad, blah, 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 and just making a case for it. And there was just a lot of anti-saloon leagues and temperance, women's Christians, huh?
Anti-saloon.
Oh, that was national. That's how prohibition got started.
See, I'm just thinking in modern times, like a saloon.
Anti-saloon leagues, yeah. Yeah, those were huge. I mean, the reason we had prohibition was a lot of those people were in the ears of politicians, much like we have lobbyists today. I mean, it was a different era, but they were the teetotalers,
Yeah.
All right, and that's how you move. That's how you move politics. To get in the ear of politicians. Period. End of story. That's how it works.
Sad but true. Yeah,
right.
And that.
Again, that's how you get there. So anyway, that's the method of that's the, what did I say, the medium to do that. So Joe says Prairie Bomb beers. Wow.
Yeah, Prairie. Prairie had a good run, and what was the thing you said? If your mom used to say, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, a little controversial opinion there.
Yeah, we got a little fuel for the post-production fire there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been exposed to a lot of the craft breweries itself, and gotten to know too many people, and then you kind of form your own opinion. But it's hard to really relay that to anybody else unless they form their own. So I've got my own opinions.
Right.
But nobody needs to hear them or could care less. So.
So then what?
But yes, that was one of the beers that was pretty well known. So going back a little bit with history.
What about this comment from our friend Rita?
What's that?
American Solera.
Yes. Oh, greater than Prairie. There we go. Yes.
Right.
That is true.
Yeah.
Well, so if you're not too familiar with Oklahoma, the person Chase Healy, who owned Prairie Artisan Ales, sold it to Krebs Brewing Company, which Krebs was the first to really start brewing, and holds the chalk beer. If you're not familiar with chalk beer, even just looking it up on Wikipedia would be kind of a fun little 2-minute read. Really interesting, unique history of that, and the family that brewed it is still in their name today. So they took it over because they were doing a lot of contract brewing. Chase is doing Solera and a lot of wicked stouts and really hazy, great IPAs and sours and foeder beers and things like that. So, he was always and still is using a lot of the local microflora to, yeast strains for his beers. So I still really appreciate those. I think it's one of the things Prairie got too big for him to what he wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys at Krebs were doing so much contract brewing and had expanded their system that it made more sense. And a lot of his beers too, I later learned. So it made more sense for him to do kind of his he's very into the small modern stuff you kind of see over in Europe, very there you go. Very chic nouveau, sort of just not trying to, which some of those things kind of builds the hype too. But he does it really well. He does really good IPAs. He has a good small staff of people, and they just know what they're doing and just knock it out every other week.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun to see him still releasing beers, and people are just having at them. And all of the Tulsa area in Oklahoma City, just curbside, people are picking up beer every day. It seems like I kind of keep a pulse on that world too, through social media, but that's nice. I mean, if that's the thing, if you really want to get into beer and get to know some people, just follow every single brewery through their social media channels, even Twitter, and you'll really get a sense of what they're doing, what they're releasing, what they're mindsets are. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, you mentioned curbside. So before, but we're gonna get back to your blog and your stuff in a bit. But jumping forward, just if you brought it here, what are you seeing Oklahoma breweries doing now, as far as dealing with the pandemic, basically? How are they selling? What are they doing?
I mean, from early on, they were allowed to deliver, which was phenomenal. I couldn't even believe that. Most of us were just shocked that they could deliver.
They can't do that even in New York State.
We're shocked too.
Yeah, but New York State's a different animal.
Well, not in Wisconsin either, and we're beer centric too.
Yeah.
Nope, and we're quote more progressive than you. Nope.
Yeah, and that's surprising too.
Well, I don't know. I'm not here to talk politics, but sometimes progressive people aren't very progressive in certain areas.
Yeah.
So actually, they're regressive in some areas. So I'm not here to talk about that. But it's just a surprise that Oklahoma is. You know, what I mean, we're not here to talk politics, but it's just a surprise.
No, it is.
It does things that we don't expect Oklahoma to do. Is that a good way to phrase it?
Yeah, I mean, when I talked to you the other night, I was surprised that Wisconsin wasn't doing anything. And honestly, I haven't really looked outside of our state to see what other people are doing, unless like there's some certain accounts that I follow. But a lot of those are on the West Coast, and then California, they're like, "Who gives a fuck? We're gonna do whatever we want."
Right.
Honestly,
eat kegs.
Yeah, and
I talked to Chris Sands just earlier today, and he said Maryland is doing deliveries. So there's a East Coast state, kind of progressive, I guess, and they're delivering. So I guess it's not about that. It's about what politicians are thinking, I guess. I don't know.
Well, Maryland, I will say Maryland is not strictly progressive. They have a Republican governor. And so the thing is, it doesn't matter about the party on that. It's like, are you trying to help your citizenry? Because if you can deliver and take that and help your small businesses be able to, if they can deliver the beer, you're helping your business. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you have Pennsylvania where marijuana dispensaries are essential and liquor stores weren't. So
I think it's weird in Pennsylvania too, though. Like the way you buy, I thought you could only buy liquor through the bar. Like, isn't that or it's state run?
I lived in Pennsylvania, and their liquor is all sold through state stores, state-owned.
Okay,
so it's all state revenue. So it's kind of interesting that they declared that non-essential, considering that would be a revenue right now for them. So
shocked, very shocked.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to stay home for like days on end, alcohol is essential. So we can move forward this conversation. We're not even going to.
I'll try and roll back my history here a little bit.
No, but what else are you seeing in Oklahoma? Okay, so the self delivery. What else are they? What other tools are they being given, or what else are they doing?
Say again.
What else is Oklahoma breweries doing? Are they doing the curbside delivery?
Yeah, I mean mostly curbside. I mean, guys are still doing beer releases, like special beer releases, and just trying to have fun with it. There's 405 in Norman is I think once a week at least they're giving back half the sale, or their name is 405 for the area code in Oklahoma City, and they're giving like $4.05 back for every $8 I think you spend, or over $8 back to either hospital or somebody in the healthcare system, or some kind of charity. I can't recall exactly, but people are getting creative with it, as most craft breweries will and do. They're trying to promote their brand, but also moving beer that they don't want to go stale, and then getting by with what they can, because a lot of these guys are pretty small. Some places like Solera had to lay off, or at least furlough some staff, and they've got a big brand new place now, and in near downtown Tulsa. So most places are kind of shoestring. So I think they're doing all right. Haven't really heard any major issues. With the, not getting into politics, but with the way that the state is, and big red state. It's, a lot of people are poo-pooing it or just doing their own thing too. And I'm not saying everybody, but I think they don't see it as much of a threat. We kind of see ourselves as a landlocked state and like in the middle of nowhere. So, and it's technically kind of true, but just not a lot of traffic through in and out. But we have Tulsa International Airport, but you don't go anywhere international unless you go through Dallas or Chicago.
Well, at least one international flight, be it to like Mexico City or to Toronto or something like that. That's the only way to clear that.
Yeah, maybe.
Doug,
but anyway,
Doug,
what's up?
No,
what? I can follow up.
Okay.
Doug, you have a question, or I can follow up?
No, go ahead. You follow up.
So, we getting back to you progressing to where you're at now, which is OklahomaCraftBeer.com. And let me put that up here, show everybody what's going on. There's a real reason why I want to show everybody this, of course.
Your picture?
My pretty face was here. Where is it?
Oh, you might have to scroll through. There you go.
There it is. Scroll there. Go in there. Oh, look at that. Beer Finder guys, we have them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, here in that picture is pretty impressive.
I love that brewery. And those tacos. That was a bomb-ass place to eat.
What was that brewery? I don't even remember.
It was the Color Run, I think.
Oh, the tacos were. The beer was great, but the tacos were.
That food was ridiculous.
It was. So, Oklahoma Craft Beer. This is where you pretty much reside, and this is where all your creativity comes. This is kind of your portal. We have another. There's another website, Beer is Okay. But that's more of your apparel stuff, right? Can you tell us all about this?
So I came up with the idea for Beer is Okay in like 2012. I worked for a promotional company at the time, and so I knew how to put designs on a bunch of stuff, and I'd always had fun just making my own thing, and got, being in a state that wasn't very progressive, I wanted to come up with something fun for craft beer. And I came up with the idea for a bottle opener. So I was like, it'd be in the shape of the Oklahoma, like my logo up there. So and this is the opener itself. But I was like, surely somebody's done this. So I'm looking, you do your Google searches and whatnot, but never found anything. Took me over almost a year to really find somebody. And there was a guy locally that could fabricate, works for a fabrication company, and knocked out about 50 or so, and just sold them like that. And I think I've always had an entrepreneurship mindset, and kind of wanted to start my own side business. So started with that, and just tried to start and I started the blog under Beer is Okay, just because I didn't see anything like that either, and no real culture around the beer. Like I said, in 2008, when I got here, Marshall Brewing just opened in downtown Tulsa, and they were there and still are, after 12 years strong, a great German-inspired brewery that does amazing lagers. They have a hell of a dunkel that I love and can consume in liters. They do some good Belgian, just a gamut of things, but German-inspired brewery at heart. But and down to earth, best people I've ever met. So, wanting to kind of get that out to everybody, and there are very, very little, very, very few like beer festivals and things around Tulsa too. So I kind of wanted to get into those more and meet the people and learn about the industry itself. So it was kind of just a big enthusiast, movement that I tried to make. And then as time rolled on, I just love puns. I don't know why. So I just came up with more and more weird shit that was in my head. Be like, oh, I love your stuff. I was like, yeah, I gotta get this shit out of my head, otherwise I'm just gonna think I'm insane. Like, I was like, I just have too much weird crap in my head. I don't know. So, over time, moved around different jobs and shifted, but started building up the blog more. And then I think around 2016, I don't even remember, I started the blog and podcast over on OklahomaCraftBeer.com. And around that time, I kind of switched and did all the merchandise on beersok.com. Well, so the funny thing was I had OklahomaCraftBeer.com in 2012 because I was starting to gather domains. And I'm like, I looked it up and was like, holy shit, that's not taken. Like, they still don't really even have a guild here, I don't believe. So I'm just like, yeah, I'll take that for $12.99. I was utterly shocked that was not taken.
Right.
Like,
so,
I don't want to be a squatter. I see an opportunity and I take it, but I don't want to be that. So I wanted to make something out of it. I don't want to be an asshole about it. But I wanted to make something and give something back. These guys are making good beer. I just feel like there's a sympathetic, philosophy in life that you have to, give in order to receive. So, the more and more I did, the more people I got to meet, the more, the more knowledge I gained too about the beer industry. So eventually led me to working for a couple of the places. I worked with Chase when they transitioned over to American Solera for a small stint, and then eventually went and managed a tap room at Dead Armadillo for about 1.5 years, which I think I was still working there during our last beer now conference, or beer bloggers conference, I should say. So,
yes, sir.
That was a good time. But yeah, and so I got out of that. Now I'm full-time at-home dad and doing this on the side and just trying to have some fun. Didn't do the blog and podcast as much. Getting back to that, having a little one and a toddler now, it's tough to find time. Like we're doing this, you might as well be doing this at 10 o'clock at night, when everybody's dead asleep. But in some places it may be 10 o'clock. I don't know. Yeah. But, getting there. And so, yeah, it's led me down this weird, strange path that meeting you guys. So it's been well worth it. Just talking about beer has proven that you can find a place for yourself, and hanging out with some good people and just having a great conversation. And so
what's up, Doug?
I just want to let you know I just actually ordered 2 shirts from there. I was like,
oh, nice.
So I picked up a shirt for my wife and I. So
perfect.
Which one's done?
Well, thanks.
I picked up the All Who Are Wanderer Are Looking for Beer is one of them, and then I also picked up the Wander for Beer crest shirt. The All Who Wander Are Looking for Beer, and then I picked up who's the other one? Maybe it's a blue one. That's the same one. Maybe I picked 2 different ones. No, the beer is calling, and I must drink.
Oh yeah.
So I got.
Oh, I want the beer's calling one.
Yeah, that's a good
one. That's one of those.
Greg, you should get the green one because the green one would look awesome on you.
Dude, that's the one I own. I love that color, that seafoam green. Yeah, it's money. Be a man.
Oh,
do it.
You got a question for Mr. Beers? Okay.
Not at the moment, other than if you're gonna. Well, actually, how about this?
Yeah.
If you're gonna pick a brewery that is your favorite in the state, what would be your choice?
So I've lived in Tulsa the whole time, and there's some really great ones. Obviously, we talked ad nauseum about Solera, but excuse me. there's in the recent years with the lax laws coming and a lot more breweries coming online, we've had a explosion in the state of Oklahoma of breweries. So there's some really great guys called Heirloom Rustic Ales that I would recommend. He does. Their brewer and part owner is Jake. He used to intern over with Chase, and then he also went down to St. Somewhere in Florida and learned the art of fermentation and making some amazing farmhouse style beers and saisons and lagers. Oh, I mean, let me tell you, speaking about with just using local cultures, yeast strains, and then using very odd and untraditional brewing ingredients. Some may say some antiquated ingredients. But man, they are some really tasty beers. Something you don't necessarily see and not expect to have in Tulsa. And then maybe getting outside of Tulsa, in Oklahoma City, there's Elk Valley Brewing from John Elkins, and I've known him since he started kind of contract brewing with one of the brewery collabs down there, and down to earth guy, home brewer turned pro, and just making some killer lagers, IPAs, just some hazy stuff, and then just really knocking out with some barrel aged stouts. So Elk Valley and in Oklahoma City now down there, I mean, they've got Elk Valley, you've got Vanessa House, you've got Twisted Spike is a nice one with Belgian-inspired beers. Their Prairie has an Oklahoma City location. Gosh, there's so many. Angry Scotsman is kind of a Scottish-based brewery.
I like that name.
Yeah, Ross is a really great guy, Scottish himself, and he does some good traditional Scottish beers and likes to experiment a lot. There's another one called Core 4. I mean, a lot of just around the corner neighborhood breweries. I'm probably forgetting 10 of them. There's Coop Ale Works over in Oklahoma City. Is probably the second longest tenured brewery in Oklahoma. They make some really killer beers that are still on the shelves these days, so I think and I've preached this from the beginning, what we lack in quantity, we have in quality, because, most places a lot of these places are still around, and there's good reason. But my top go-to stuff I bring home, there's a new place called Stone Cloud Brewing, and they've been around for a few years, and they make some amazing IPAs and stouts and some sour ales as well. So I would check them out too. Trying to think what I buy on a weekly basis.
Well, cheers for that, man.
Yeah.
So I got to give you a little time to talk about your podcast.
Yeah.
So what's it called?
So I used to have just a regular podcast back a few years ago. It was just Oklahoma Craft Beer Podcast, and I kind of named it the official craft beer Oklahoma Craft Beer Podcast, and I really did collect a great audio history of all these breweries coming online, because it really was in that time frame around 2015 to 2017, I think. A lot of places were starting to pop up, and so it was kind of neat to see these guys in their infancy and where they came from. Got away from that with the kid, and then everything else going on, and then I came up with this Beer is My Calling podcast, which I kind of, after talking to Greg a little bit and doing all these beer blogs and things like that, and talking to all these other great people, I was like getting a little homesick, I was like, I could probably do this again, and I've kind of got a schedule down now. I can kind of wedge people in a small space during the day. So I just wanted to branch out a little bit more. I did a couple of things on Instagram Live with some YouTube or with some Instagram influencers. One girl in Oklahoma, and then another one in she's in Washington, and just talking to them about beer influencers and things like that always fascinated me. So moved on to do some more episodes with a few guys in Oklahoma as well that piqued my interest that I never got to really talk to. And now since we had this quarantine, it's like, man, everybody's probably just sitting around doing nothing. Might as well chew their ear off for a while and, start it back up again. So it's called Beer's My Calling. And basically it's, a more broad net that I want to cast and, catch people from all over the country, maybe even the world, to just kind of make new friends and, get my name out there a little bit and, see why beer is your calling. Why is beer called to you? Why does it appeal to you? Why, I'm always fascinated with the human behavior and why we do what we do. So beer is a nice influencer, a nice motivator, but there's always a story behind it.
Drink the story, as our friend Aloe says.
Oh, I got a banner for that.
Yeah, you do. So another thing that we've been talking about to everybody is, and it's a lot of the answers are fairly similar, but you're in a different area than we are, so there might be different things that you can say. Obviously, we're all talking about how we can help our breweries, our local breweries. A lot of them are really small, and they're just barely scraping by before this happened. So curbside pickup for most of us, deliveries, and anything else that you could suggest just from how you're dealing with local breweries where you are?
Man, I mean, they're so tied to what the states allow too. So you have to deal that factor in. And if you're given a green light, I would say try every effort to make anything appeasable for people to, those that can still afford to, buy beer on a weekly basis or, bi-weekly basis. I think get creative with it. Don't stop making things. Don't let this dampen your spirits just because, like anything, it's going to be temporary. We're heaven's willing, but if we do our part, and we will get out of it. But don't lose faith on people. Don't lose faith on the fact that we're not going to, all get out one day and go have a beer in a beer garden again. I say use your creative ingenuity that you use to start up the brewery, because I know it's not easy. I know it takes us years to build capital and build a place and gain your customers over time and, keep them happy. So, I think one thing I stress a lot in my business too, is if you just take care of the little things, the big things come later. Money comes later. If you're not focused on money, it will come. So that's what she said.
So, other ones we've heard are gift certificates, buying your beers directly,
gear, buying gear too, if you can.
Yeah, that's true. Buy any swag that you can. Usually markup on that's pretty good for them.
Yeah,
typically. I don't see a whole lot of that. I've seen some places just giving up they'll give away. Marshall's here is giving away a glass growler because you can't bring yours in for obvious reasons. But they're giving away a growler with any fill, or particular certain types of beer, and people are giving away glassware. Any kind of small enticement. Go to any of your vendors and ask for discounts. They may give you more than what they're offering now. I know Grandstand out of Kansas usually has discounts weekly or monthly. Talk to your reps, make a deal. I think anybody at this point, if the revenue's coming in, they'll barter with you. I can't imagine not, because people want to retain customers. It's, you know, in this market. So
yeah, Greg can talk to that because he was as the Ale Asylum stuff. Like they're selling certain beers of theirs that are like normally $6 a piece. They're selling them for like $1 and things like that. They want to make sure that, you know, they're customers and stuff.
Well, there's a certain point too where you have to dump it. So it's like, well, let's at least get our money back and not dump beer, because that sounds silly.
That sounds depressing.
Yeah, that too.
Nope. And then, you know, the average is we have, or the opposite is we have Working Draft Brewing here, and they have a lottery system. So you have to enter a lottery in order to be able to have the privilege to buy the beer. So there's two different things going on. Or again, like I said, a disclaimer: I don't know anybody at Ale Asylum, and I'm not sure if they're just have a lot of beer or there's a combination of them just cutting their prices for the good of it. So I'm not sure. They're the ones that have the fuck COVID beer. So they have that. There's a certain kind of attitude going on through that brewery, and generally, in my opinion, it's a good one. Good rebellious one. It's not. They don't. You know, they don't even really get close to the line. They're just edgy in a fun way, if that makes any sense. But So again, I'm just, you know, I talked to Chris earlier. He was in Maryland. We talked to Hamilton Riley from Virginia last week. We continue to talk to people who are bringing us these different perspectives from all around America now. Nice. So it's really cool to hear not only what's going on in different areas, but just to hear the ingenuity that is going on. Let me share a quick story with you. I don't know if you guys saw the me and Chris Sands talk, but Chris Sands telling me, and I found this out when we were live, that the app that Ale Asylum uses for online delivery and how they do their own curbside was made by a brewer in Maryland. And when they found out they made it, they pretty much gave it away because they knew that breweries didn't have this. And that was one thing that could really help breweries get through, is that a lot of breweries, in fact, seriously, 99% of them didn't have. You can go to any brewery website and pick, I'm going to pick out my beers and you're going to like have them ready for me. That wasn't a thing until the pandemic hit.
No.
So these came up with software and pretty much gave it away.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. And it's funny because I was like, whoa, I wasn't even ready to talk about Ale Asylum, but this beer that I got here I got that through that website or through that software. So I didn't know that until I was on the live show with Chris. He told me about it. It was excellent. But that's just another show. That's another thing that's showing resiliency. And that also shows, in my opinion, solidarity. Friendship or brotherhood or whatever you want to. We're all community. We're all in this together. It was fascinating for me to hear that. But breweries have. I mean, just like everybody has a lot to learn about pandemics, more than others, of course. But really, we all have to learn how to adapt. I mean, I go to the supermarket now way early in the morning than I used to. Some people go, you know what I mean? Some people just go alone now when they used to go with their wives. Some people, you know what I'm saying? So we're all adapting. But it's really interesting to see what breweries are allowed to do and then where they take that. It's kind of what, because it's, it sounded like, again, we're not calling out any breweries, but some breweries are just doing their own thing, and again, I'm not sure who's over the overhead on any of that. And I don't know, there's people here in Madison doing like cocktails. They make their own, you call them and they'll deliver a cocktail setting for you, like everything, whole setup.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, but that has to be on the down low, unfortunately. Again, I'm not sure if this is, again, that's the last thing you need during a pandemic is.
Yeah, a little knock on.
Hello, this isn't right. Liquor Control Board. Who? What? What do you guys do? You guys exist? No, So yeah, man. I don't know. I just want. I thanks for sharing. What you are experiencing down there. Anything else down there that's quirky or different, or anything else we should know about?
There was the 3-2 beer that we talked about, that got done away with in 2016. Since then we've become such a really progressive state. We've gotten so many new beer brands in that we haven't had before, like Deschutes and Dogfish Head and New Belgium. What are these places? I don't even know. Like, it's so crazy to me. And Stone, and never heard of these before. But yeah, it's to that level that we were restricted on distribution. So that's within the past 5 years.
Yeah, it seems like you guys want to know a little bit during the pandemic. I mean, at least here again.
There's definitely a local mentality, though. There's definitely a drink local mentality. I see it more and more.
I don't know. Maybe Oklahoma's pro-business. Maybe that's where the angle comes, and they're just really open about making sure that the breweries. Again, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's great. I love it. I can't say enough. I hope as long as this goes, I think that we're gonna have to think about a lot of things differently. And breweries delivering, I'm not sure what the big problem is, especially if we can keep those people employed. This is an employment thing. People want to talk about opening up. Well, there's a thing that you could open up without really exposing anybody, is delivery, is making it easier for people to get the services. If you have to roll that back when we roll back, that's fine. But I don't know, man, going forward, we're going to have a lot of people. Again, not to preach, but until we have a vaccine, we're going to have a lot of at-risk people that don't want to leave their house, and there's going to be a market for this curbside stuff. And I just think that we need to be more accessible as a business, whether it's alcohol or not. Damn it.
Yeah. Preach.
There is a but in distribution.
Daniel. You need to drop a dad joke in here.
He said, remember, Brian likes puns, so let's go.
That is true.
He makes a good point, though. I mean, So, Brian, anything else you want to hit us with? Anything else we missed?
I mean, there's a wealth of stuff. You mentioned before we went on, I'm writing a book. Hold on a sec.
Parenthood.
Yeah.
So I'm still in the middle of trying to write a book, with the toddler at my ankles. So there is a lot more history than people think in Oklahoma with brewing. So I'm trying to tackle that and hopefully have a book out this year with everything that's going on now.
Books about Oklahoma beer history?
So brewing history of Oklahoma. There's, I started to sit down and write something. I was like, man, I don't know anything. And I just went and dug into some old newspapers and old articles. And there's a wealth, I never thought there was brewing before Prohibition. And there was at least good couple decades, before statehood, or maybe a decade before statehood there were some places with backing from Anheuser-Busch, and Augustus Busch was involved in one of them. So it was kind of neat to see. It was well before the oil boom in Tulsa and things like that. So it was kind of a progressive state in that means. And brewing was a top 10 industry back in the day. Think about that for a second. We're not. It's getting back, but it was such a huge industry back then, and people didn't realize that. Craft or not, it's technically it was craft. Even now it's being on a larger scale, but I'm sure there was stuff that's didn't taste the same every time they put it out. But and certain places had some really great German immigrants that came through to really dial in some great recipes. And one place eventually turned into Lone Star Brewing, that's now in Texas. So or at least was bought out and was one of their plants, and brewed Lone Star beer for quite a while. So a lot of rich history that nobody really realized. So it'll be fun to put that all together and unleash that. A lot more of it is more recent and more in my time frame, so it's kind of easier to try and track down people. So it's not that hard. But yeah, I mean, I can just go to oklahomacraftbeer.com. I'm trying to put some more things on there with this podcast, and go to you can follow me on I'm on Instagram mostly at beer is okay, and post a lot of pictures on there. I just like to keep trying to design as much as I can. Just released this new sticker today, and doing kind of doing some stuff that's not quite beer related, because I'm a big nature fan, so I wanted to just kind of do something in inspired by nature. So I did that with this new circle sticker. I don't know, where is it here? I got so many damn stickers there. So something like that, kind of fun.
Yeah.
But go check it out. I've been having a lot of fun doing this, and like I said, it's been great getting to meet you guys over the years, and just talking beer, drinking beer, and more beer,
and more beer
to get us through. Cheers.
It's been like I said, the history of beer. Like we've had a couple people who are interested, like Liz, who is Chicago Museum, things like that. Like getting the history of beer is not something we think about, but there is getting the gist of how it kind of came to fruition in different places, and the journey those places had to take, like the journey that it had to happen to get to where it is sometimes it's we forget about that, and that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Got to know where you came from.
Yeah, true.
Or repeat yourself.
All right, Brian. Thanks for coming on and showing us and telling us about Oklahoma beer.
Sure.
We understand that beer is okay now.
There you go.
Look at that! I used it. Perfect. We'll have you. Once that book comes out, we're gonna need to come back. You're gonna need to come back.
Yeah, do some promotion.
The threat is real. Yeah. So.
All right, Brian.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
Hi for those tornadoes.
Yes, we'll do.
Yeah.
Oh, another one in the books, Doug. What's going on?
That was, like I said, I like hearing a bit more of the historical part of it, because we don't really usually dig into that at all. Like we've had a few guests, but I don't generally spend a lot of time thinking about the history of it. So that's and especially in a place like Oklahoma, I wouldn't think that had, to be fair, much of a history other than like Anheuser-Busch and. So it was good having Brian on to kind of give us a little bit more of a lowdown.
Yes, and Daniel's looking forward to the book somewhere.
Me too.
I mean, I love to say that beer is history, beer is science, beer is chemistry, beer is physics, beer is everything, y'all. It's really that simple. So, without further ado, our next speaker, my friend, is I call him now 360 Joel Graphic.
Yeah, different talk with Joel, because we had him on last week, and now he'll be talking about his photography. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen his 360 stuff or know anything about it, but he's pretty good at it.
Yeah, he's excellent at it, and it's like, when does that guy sleep?
I'm not sure, but I've had a number of these 360 cameras, and I don't know. You've seen some pictures. I've done some pictures, but I just don't grasp it to the level that Joel has. So it's gonna be fun to really talk to him about that. And then of course he has his Daddy's Grounded website. He's been talking about that, being a dad on blogs forever. Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. And then we have Vernon. We got all these people with books. Vernon's gonna have his book on Friday.
Someday I'll write a book.
Yeah, Doug, what's going on? What are we waiting for?
Well, I like writing fiction, so that's why I've been trying to write it. I have 2 books I've started that I have not even come close to finishing.
Well, we'll talk about that at a later.
I forgot to ask Brian was like, how, like, as a writer, I'm so unmotivated right now to write anything. It's really difficult. Like for me, I just should have asked him that in the show, but we'll ask him next time when it gets to the book time.
Right. You can visit him meanwhile at OklahomaCraftBeer.com, and those wonderful designs are at beersok.com. But yeah, motivation during this time, I got nothing for you, man. I'm trying to wake up tomorrow. I don't know, man. Days that I have shows are better than days that I don't. Actually, it used to be the other way around, though, Doug, believe it or not.
Yeah, I used to not have problems when I was way more busy. Now his thing is like it's busy in completely different ways now. It's crazy.
Yep. So we'll talk about that more on Friday, Doug. I'll see you on Thursday with Joel, though.
Yeah, you got it, man.
We're getting out of here.
All right.
We'll see you.